Mama Savage.
Hi there, Vitalis the Savage Queen here. So I was drawing today, but I already finished the outlining of my drawing, so I decided to just go ahead and include you guys anyway, so you get to watch me color and stuff. So I really like this style, so I've been busy practicing it a lot. I only use this style for animation purposes only, because it's really animation style, but I should really practice doing this style as my own customary drawing style overall. When I first started drawing, I was a little kid and it was on paper and it used to be little stick people and stick animals. And yeah, they weren't that great. But over time, I started drawing on paper. I was not only into like drawing, but also into arts and craft. I used to make little animals that could move their little legs and stuff. They're stuffed animals, of course. My favorite part so far when it comes to like drawing is basically giving them emotion and of course their personality traits, as each one is unique and different in their own way. However, as I gotten older, I started drawing on computer. First, my friend taught me how to draw on the computer, and then I started venturing out on my own, watching YouTube channels and trying to better myself in art. And that's where I am today. And I'm going to keep going because that's how I am. That is the main reason why I don't have a style per se, like how everybody else just have a style and they just keep drawing the same style over and over and over again. I cannot. I need to draw different stuff, different styles. That's who I am. I'm creative. Do I only draw wolves? No and yes. And here's why. I draw wolves because I'm still trying to learn the dynamic of how to draw them properly, regardless if they look like anime or normalized wolves. I can draw a lion, and it'll look more like a lion than anything else. Mine is me animating and drawing. I also love hiking, writing stories, reading books, and also stargazing. I love astronomy the most because you can just look up into the sky, look at all the stars, and learn all the constellations. It's really beautiful when you go outside at night. And you get to see the different phases of the moon and the meteor showers that happen early in the morning. It's really beautiful. You should go outside and see it sometime. So you're wondering why I'm drawing Vitalis with a crown and a royal cape on, because I wanted to. She is a queen after all, so she should show it. I know it's a faster way to coloring in what you draw, but I do not like the color bucket for nothing in the world. It leaves everything, and I mean everything, looking all scratchy, and it's missing areas that have no paint. It's ridiculous. So I just manually color it myself. And also I know that they have like a little tricky tool where you can just click and then just double click it and then you can just color in the whole thing, but it's basically the same thing. I do not like it. So I rather just color in all together so I don't see the little white between the lines and the color. How did I come about the crown? Well, I wanted to draw the black pink crown. However, I couldn't. It was just too hard to draw. It was complicated, and I just didn't like how it looked on the sideways either. So I just started drawing randomly, and that's how I came up with the crown, I guess. Why do I use so many layers? when you're drawing, and if you want to see what you're doing, it is better for you to separate your colors from each other. So if anything happens, you can either always go back or change it if you don't like something. So it's very helpful and informative when you're drawing. This also goes the same for outlines. Say you messed up the face and you have everything all in one place. So you're going to make your mouth really small, or you can have it separate, which is more logical. So you have your eyes, your nose, your mouth together, and then you have your ears separate, and then the body and the neck separate as well. You don't want them together, so you don't end up messing your beautiful design up. What do I use when it comes to drawing digitally? Well, I use a mouse and my computer. I do not use the mouse pad on my laptop, as it is hard to do, but I do use it to zoom in and zoom out, because for some odd reason, my computer doesn't do it anymore. Well, since I'm not much of a talker, I'm gonna put on some Creepypasta. The Creepypasta is by The Dark Somium, and it's called I Think the World is Ending.
At this point, there is little that will make any difference. I can protest that I am a victim. I was always a victim, the same as everybody. But I can't ask for your forgiveness. I'm recording this to tell you how it happened. That won't matter either. It's the only thing I can do at this point, so it's what I'm doing. I found the guitar in an old pawn shop in Boston. The proprietor was a caricature of a pawnbroker, a bent little old man with a hooked nose and wisps of white hair around his ears, his face creased with a permanent frown from too many years of feigning disgust with the stuff people brought in. I didn't bother speaking to him at first, just walked up and down the narrow aisles between the shelves stacked with endless junk. I thought people brought their valuables to pawn, but this guy had somehow acquired piles of rusty old hand woodworking tools, random glassware and salt shakers, chipped china, and flatware that wasn't silver. I felt curiously drawn to a battered old wardrobe that looked like it had been built of leftover tongue and groove siding. I almost opened it, but I was sure it could only be filled with mink coats. Judging from the rest of his stuff, probably moth-eaten mink coats. I felt his eyes glued onto me, waiting for me to try to lift something. With my mohawk and torn jeans, I often got that look, but given the worthlessness of this crap, it was almost insulting. I said screw it and headed for the door. "Can I help you with something?" he said, husky and suspicious. I looked him straight in the eye. "I doubt you have a guitar?" He almost smiled. The corners of his mouth twitched, but then I think they couldn't remember how smiling worked and gave up on it. "I might have a guitar," he said, "for the right price." This didn't sound promising. He didn't say any more. I wondered if he were expecting me to fork over money sight unseen. "Well, do you or don't you, old man?" "I do, kid," he said, which I had to respect. After I'd called him old man, it was only fair he called me kid. But I like how he said it. Deliberate. To be clear, he was giving me back what was mine. "Look in the wardrobe right behind you. Don't open the case, just bring it over here to the counter." It was the wardrobe I'd almost opened. I did, now, and found it contained nothing but a dusty, rectangular guitar case. I humored the old man, carried it over to the counter. I put it down so it would open toward him, since he obviously didn't want me to handle it until I'd bought it. He turned it around, flicked open the clasps, and pulled it open, shrinking down behind the lid. Later, I would note that the maneuver protected him from the sight of the guitar. I doubt he really understood what he had, but he was not totally ignorant. At the time, though, I just put it down to showmanship. Inside was the most amazing black guitar I've ever seen. It was so black, it looked like there was no guitar there at all. Just some silver frets and strings stretched across nothing. A guitar shape ripped into the universe. I reached into the case just to touch it, just to be sure there was a guitar there. The old man closed the case part way, nearly trapping my hands inside. I didn't pull away. No, he said, his lips curling back from his teeth. Not here. I can't buy it if I can't try it. Take your hand out of the case. I did. I wanted the guitar. I had to hear it first, but frankly, if I didn't play it at all, I'd still have bought it. If I could afford it. It was that cool. He shut the case and fastened the latches. Take it into the basement. There's an old amplifier down there. You can plug it in and play it. But see here, the volume on that amplifier is set on 2, right? It says on 2. Sure? I said, whatever. He laid a bony hand on a red fire extinguisher at the end of the counter. See this? You know what this is for? Putting out fires? You'd think so, wouldn't you? But check the pressure gauge. I looked at the dial on top. It was all the way down on empty. The only thing it's good for is bashing out the brains of people who don't follow the rules. Got it? The volume stays on 2. Somehow, I wasn't too frightened at the thought of this old man trying to assault me with a fire extinguisher, except for the thought of trying to convince the police that the punk had acted in self-defense when he broke the little old shopkeeper in 2. It didn't matter. I didn't need the guitar to be loud to tell if it could play. I took the case and went through the little door, down the steep steps. It crossed my mind that I was probably doing something stupid, going down into this crazy old man's cellar, looking for, a cask of Amontillado. But frankly, the door was so flimsy, I could turn it into kindling if he tried to lock it behind me. All he did was yell down at me about keeping the volume on 2. In the basement was a chest freezer, a big converted coal furnace, some broken furniture, and a vintage amplifier. I put the guitar down on the freezer and opened the case again. Down in the basement, it looked even blacker than before, if that were possible. I touched the guitar, just to assure myself that it was real. My hand stopped, so there was definitely something there, but I couldn't really feel it. It had all the friction of black ice, but no sensation of cold. A sensation of vertigo crept over me, as if I were going to fall into the nothingness. Impulsively, I grabbed the strap that at least felt like leather and lifted the guitar so it hung from my shoulder. It had weight like a guitar. The sensation of vertigo left me when I wasn't staring right at it. I fished a patch cord out of the case, plugged it into the amp, and switched it on. I turned the volume up to 2.5 just to screw with the old man, then touched the strings. Just the tinny sound a guitar makes when the club owner pulls the plug on your show. I only had a moment of disappointment before I remembered that this amplifier probably had vacuum tubes. It would need to warm up before it would play. I waited a minute. The amplifier hummed with potentiality. Then I struck the open strings, or I meant to. I hit them one after the other in a slow arpeggio to hear how far out of tune it was. But on the first note, my fingers froze. It was indescribable. A deep, resonant tone that sounded like it came out of the primeval past. A note imagined by alien races that had looked down on Earth when all life was just slime on the bottom of the sea. It unseated my bowels from the rest of my viscera and set them floating uneasily. I took a deep breath and plucked out the first 7 notes of Stairway to Heaven. It seemed like the right riff to try. The guitar spoke with the voice of God, but not the all-forgiving God of the Gospels, nor even the strict pedantic God of evangelicals. This was the Old Testament God, mighty and awful. The God that shook mountains and spoke in thunder and trumpets. The God that smote the Edomites by the thousands. My head swam. I was terrified, and at the same time, I had to have this guitar. I would pay whatever price the old man asked. I snapped off the amplifier and forced myself to walk slowly up the stairs. The door was unlocked. The old man was back where he had been, behind his counter, adding rows of figures in a little black book. I tried to act casual. How much you want for it? It came out as a shaky, tense whisper. So much for acting casual. The old man would have to be deaf to not know I'd pay whatever he asked. But maybe he was deaf. He didn't even look up. I repeated myself, louder and less desperate. He glanced up, surprised to see me standing in front of him. Then he took an earplug out of one ear. If he hadn't heard me, he knew what I'd said. $2,000. My stomach, already dangerously unmoored, flipped over again. That was 4 times what I'd told myself was my maximum price when I set out guitar hunting. I drew a deep breath and tried. I can't pay more than... Bah! He interrupted and thumped a hand-lettered sign on the wall behind him. Do not try to dicker. All prices are firm. On another day, I knew that just because you put something on a sign doesn't make it true. Saying he didn't dicker was just the first round of dickering. But I didn't have it in me. I had to have a guitar. I took out my wallet and pulled out my credit card, wondering what hope I would have of paying this off. Can't you read? He snarled and thumped another hand-lettered sign. All sales are cash only. Can I hold it with a deposit? I asked. How much you got? He asked. $50? There's a cash machine on the corner. You could take out $250, make it $300. I could. I'd even have enough left to eat until payday. Paying rent would take some imagination, but I could do this. It may take me a little while to work up the rest and come back. Even as I said it, I knew it was hopeless. I'd never have $1,700 in cash, not unless I took a cash advance on the credit card and paid the 30% interest rate. No, he said. Don't come back. If you walk in my door again, I'll bash your brains out with this fire extinguisher. But $300, he said. In cash. Go get it now, then take your guitar and get the hell out of here. If I see you again, I'll kill you. The man was clearly raving mad, but $300 was a price I could pay. I went out to the cash machine, traded all my money for the guitar, and left before he could make good on his threat. It was only then that I realized I'd even given him my bus fare home. I wound up walking 2 miles through the city. I got home late and tired. Playing the guitar seemed like too momentous a thing to attempt in that state. I put it aside, microwaved a can of mushroom soup, and went to bed early. But I didn't sleep well. I dreamt about the guitar. In my dreams, it wasn't just black. There were stars twinkling in the void. When I tried to pick it up, my hands went right through it. I felt like I could reach deep in and scoop out a handful of stars, except I figured they'd be terribly hot. I thought they'd make tiny little burns in my hand. There was something behind the stars, too. Something vast and restless. A long, slow rolling in the dark. I didn't want to touch that thing. I didn't want to disturb it. It was asleep, but not deeply. I hardly dared to breathe. If I woke it, I had no idea. Something very bad would happen.